Okay, Mads, I'll pause over to you. I know you're going to tag team it with Martin.
Alrighty, thank you so much. I guess just a disclaimer in the beginning. Obviously, we are representing Noble, but any opinions and statements made are that of our own, right? All right, and with the click wrapper out of the way, so just quickly about Noble Corporation. So our roots go back to 1921. We are an offshore drilling company, so we're drilling oil wells. We have about 3,800 employees, plus an additional 2,000 who engage through labor contractors agencies. So roughly 20% are working onshore, and the remaining majority, 80%, working onshore or offshore on our drilling rigs. We have 32 modern drilling rigs operating across the world. So drill ships, as depicted here, as well as jackups and semi-submersibles. And with our, you would say, global presence, also means that we have local presence in terms of onshore support and local offices, and also local suppliers, etc. Right, with invoice and so on, as will be relevant in a short while. Alrighty, let's go to next slide, please. Alrighty, so as mentioned, I'm heading up Intelligent Automation. I brought along Martin, who is our lead IA developer. The setup now is we have a couple of people here in Denmark, in Copenhagen, as well as a crack team of developers and business analysts sitting in Manila, in the Philippines. We have based our automation platform on Blue Prism, and then everything is set up with Azure infrastructure. On top of that, we have the C2 platform orchestrating and running our robots. So we have about 100 of those. We have been doing RPA since 2017 as a company, and Martin and I have been on board for about 2 years or so. So with the C2 application we installed last year, so I think we freed up about 75% of our support demand from developers, and have been able to spend that a little bit more say value creating than just keeping the wheels turning. So you would say the big thing that we have gone into or working with is AP automation, invoice handling. So basically, we have a good chunk over 100,000 invoices per year, and a good mix between PO and non-PO invoices. And for the uninitiated, a PO invoice, basically you have all the details up front in your ERP system, and you just need to check that the invoice coming in is correct and numbers are correct, and you can then process that for authorization. For all the non-PO invoices, you need to take a different path. You need to check that things are correct, and it's a valid invoice that we want to pay, that we actually ask for what we're paying for. And as such, it creates a lot of different pathways. So obviously it adds efficiency, but it also adds precision to the process, right? And payment on time and stuff like that. So for this you say the happy flow here, when we looked at it, is basically you have the PO coming in, and you can check that everything is looking all right, and then we can process and shove it into our ERP system. But there is a number of different pathways where it's definitely not a happy flow, and where you need to have a specialist help out with details. So what we're talking about here is that we need to have a human in the loop, basically, to check that things are right or figure out what's wrong, contact the supplier to have it revised or have it updated and set in correctly in the system and so on. So we basically we had two options looking at this. So we were looking at either Interact from Blue Prism or the C2 platform. And as mentioned, we were already running with the platform from C2 for orchestration. And as such, we're evaluating which ones would suit us better. And you would say there are two sort of big contributors there to go with the C2 option, as evident from our presence here, is where we went. So one is it's already part of the package, if you will. We don't need additional license for running it, so it makes for an easy business case, at least in terms of licensing. And then secondly, also we are using C2 to expose sort of information to our business owners. And we wanted to have one platform where they would both be able to see status for robots, but also be able to interact with them. And then diving into it, we quickly figured out that we needed not just an ability to sort of ask a question or something from our specialist, but actually interact with them in a more dynamic way. So that being using information from the invoice to figure out what would make sense. So I've brought Martin along to dive into sort of the technical setup of the solution and how we have strung together some of these technologies to actually exploit the options here in human in loop solution. So I guess with that, over to Martin, and then the next slide, please.
Thank you, Mads. Yes, so here we're looking at the solution architecture of one of our automations. So as you see here, there will be an email input with an invoice. We call that the AP project, where we use that to automate the PO handling in the ERP system. So the ERP is the one on top here. So we use Blue Prism as well for the RPA tool, and we can get information with Blue Prism like we normally do. And then we use Decipher IDP, which is the intelligent document processing tool that they provide. So that will fetch the invoice from the email and use OCR to extract the text from the invoice, and will use machine learning to improve itself on how to get information out of the invoices. As you can imagine, there are quite a lot, as Mads just said. So a lot of different kind of invoice documents. So as you see here, once that information is extracted, we will determine if it's a non-PO invoice or if it's a PO invoice. So in the case where it's a PO invoice, it'll follow the happy flow, as Mads mentioned. So for some of the cases here will be completely automated, and that just passes through Blue Prism, and then the text and information from the invoice is passed into the ERP system, same like you would normally do with automations. So as a lot of you guys probably know, RPA is automation of routine-based processes. So in the cases where you know what you're looking for, and it's a routine process where that can just be passed on. But then with some of the invoices, there will be missing details. So we'll have wrong details, and that's what you see here in the flow as well. So and that is where it's very neat to have C2 human in the loop. It's called robot interaction. And what we use that for is we can build web forms in the C2 interface, and then we can ask a business user to provide the missing details. It could be the PO number could be missing, and then the business owner will input that to the form and click submit. As you see, you can always handle things manually, like normally, but with this solution, you can use C2 to submit the missing information, and you can click the button, and then Blue Prism can complete that process or automate it. So that's very neat, and it enables us to pick up the exceptions, so to speak. So yeah, and then I would like to talk about the non-POs. So as you see, if it's not a PO, it could be a new type of invoice. It'll still extract information, and then we can use Blue Prism Decision, which is a machine learning tool, to come with different kind of suggestions. So that could be suggestion for posting account, and of course that will need to be trained by the IA team. Yeah, so as you could probably imagine, suggestions is not quite good enough. So we will need humans to verify that the details are correct. And here again, C2 is quite good at that. So you can have a form again where you can accept or reject the suggestion that was provided for the machine learning model. And in the case where it's good, you will accept it, and then Blue Prism will automate that and put it back into the ERP system. And again, you can also handle these manually, like you always can with these kind of tools. So, and then I would like to talk a bit about the ML model prediction and the feedback loop that we also use C2 for. So all the cases where it's wrong, so the decision that it's the suggestion that it came up with is wrong, the business user will then reject it. So that leaves us with a list of rejected cases that we can have the IA team go back into decision and train that so that it's correct. Yes, and talking about ML, it might also be good to describe what so when you're talking about machine learning, you have ML ops, and it's quite common to talk about data drift. So that's the thing when you train it on a static data set, and then as data passes through the machine learning, then it might get out of scope and it's not suggesting the right things. So we call that data drift. A way to solve that is having an app on top where you can. So that's also what we use C2 for. Basically, you can use that. So you need to maintain the ML, so that's it's doing the right thing. Yeah, and actually you can apply that to a lot. So if you want to implement new AI features, you can also use this functionality. So basically, you'll just be replacing the present decision box here with something else. So as you can imagine, with AI features, there might be cases where you need a human to verify that what have been generated by AI, whatever it is okay to be processed or made back into any system. So you can have the same process with an accept or reject suggestions. And I would like to highlight how dynamic I find human in the loop or robot interact in C2. So basically, you can have a lot of different flows where you build the forms in Blue Prism, and it's just actions where you build it, and you can have logic. So you build different forms for different kind of cases. So that's very neat. Yes.
Yeah, Mads, Martin, thank you for that, and great level of detail in terms of the final slide. Tobias, I think you had a couple of technical questions come in, didn't you, that you're going to tackle?
Yeah, we have a few different ones actually. You can see one on the screen there now from Clement. You see it, Mats?
Yeah. So just I guess everyone can see, but yeah. So we have about 100 robots, and we had roughly 2 people, FTE more or less, doing support on and off. It depends a little bit on where we are in the calendar years, obviously for in the month, in the year, so on, right? And these things. But we went from 2 people to, I guess, not even half an FTE for support. So quite a dramatic upside, as well as also a reduction in say usage of licenses in Blue Prism. Not because of you say less work, but just in a better scheduling, right? And less sort of space in between them, or buffer time, right?
Great. And we have a question from Michael as well. I think it's quite related.
No, so we have 100 processes we have about 10 robots running those. So.
Mads, just on the support savings, has that allowed you to put resources elsewhere?
It obviously opens up for more development, right, with the same workforce. And as such, you can see with this one is obviously a point where we've been able to invest resources on developing this stuff, right? But we have been, as mentioned, through a merger, right? So there's been a lot of opportunity to use automation. Some things for sort of a longer running things, and other for one-offs things here and there. So it has helped us in delivering on that, obviously, but also opening up for further development. So I mean, the more you spend on support, the less you get done, right? If you will, you deliver on what you promised, but you don't expand your portfolio. No.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the human in the loop, then, have you got more runway to look at that across the business, or are you kind of at a good place?
For now, we're focused here. I can see a lot of different opportunities. So basically, whenever you want to have eyes on, and I mean, if we look at the process here, if you take it to the extreme, I guess you can get to a point where it will be very reduced, right, using machine learning and so on, if you want to. Mm-hmm. There's obviously a risk management part of that, where how much do you want to take on it with machine learning and so on. But I would say it's I guess it's up to the imagination, right, what you can take it to.
Yeah, absolutely. Tobias, I think you want to dig into a couple of the sort of exceptions.
Yes. Regarding machine learning, I was actually thinking, what's your median confidence score on the document processing you have?
So right now, I think we're about 85% or so. So it's not top of the class, but I would say one thing is sort of just handling the happy flow and that part. But just I think there's a little bit on the slide about a feedback loop for the model, but there's also a very important part, which is a feedback loop from the end result of the process, right? Wherever we end up, there is likely a human in the loop. There's some information added to the process, and we can use that in our optimization process to figure out what's not working and sort of get closer to the full potential, right? So yes, you always need to be able to read your invoices, and we're working on improving that continuously. But also remembering that human in the loop actually provides you with good insights into where things are not working process-wise.
Awesome. Have you been looking at potentially using different human in the loop forms or interacting with your users differently depending on the PO amount and confidence score, for example?
Yeah. So one of the thoughts we've had has been sort of you read what's in the invoice, and you could say, let's use a model to come up with an idea of where this should what account should it be coded on if it's a non-PO, for example. You could say, well, based on the history and the model, we say it ought to be this account, for example. And then you could determine, okay, if you are above or below a certain value threshold or number of invoices from the same vendor or whatever it might be, you would just put it in automatically. Otherwise, you will divert to a human to take a decision on whether to put it in as is or not. You could even go so far as to say we don't actually want to look into sort of classifying. So we just want to use our models to come with a bet on should this invoice go in or not, right? And then yes, use a value if that's what we're after, right? But we can look at vendor and stuff like that, right? Where we build out the model to a level where we are quite certain that this is just get it in, and there is still an approval, right, by the receiver of the goods in the end. So it's not like we're circumventing everything, but it's you could decide to set that threshold in terms of value at some point, right? And do it dynamically.
Hey, very interesting. I mean, there is many options to move forward.
Yeah.
I see we have one question from a LinkedIn user as well. It's two parts. Why do you use machine learning rather than other technologies such as regex?
So for the machine learning, so basically our thinking here is that we are taking the invoices that we have with the output from the read. We can basically read our history, right? And we can read our history as well from the ERP system and make sure that we know what's right and wrong. If we're using this model, it's a bit like a LLM or whatever, right? That you might not know exactly how it's making its decisions, right? But you're training on say this is how it should look, right? And this is what should come out. If you're using regex or similar, right? Then you need to know exactly what you're looking for. We're still using regex to train it, right? And to find details in it in the model. But the following you can add on, I guess, machine learning to
if I can also mess. Yeah, I also think that it's not, you don't have to choose machine learning or regex. They complement each other. I also had talked with one of our senior data scientists, and he said exactly the same, right? So that actually that it
seems like just having a bit of trouble
down that complements. So we do need to apply regex to extract. Thank you.
Christian,
we're losing you a bit there, Martin, but
Yeah.
as you're saying, these technologies are potentially complementary and you can use one or another to enhance each other. So definitely great. There is also a comment that do you use human in loop in any way to train your machine learning model?
We say not per design yet, or not per completed solution yet, but it is on our sort of design that is what we want to do, right? And how exactly we go about it. I mean, one thing is that you continuously improve your model for reading the invoices. The other part is figuring out what's wrong when you do things, right? What elements are wrong. And there we'll use the output as well for the human in loop solution to feedback.
Great.
So I don't know, we didn't touch too much on it, but just want to mention one detail on the human in the loop solution. It's so on the platform, right? It's actually a dynamic form, so you can fill in what you want to do, and it can be as short as figuring out, okay, this ought to be a PO invoice. Let's just send it to the vendor and ask for that to be put on the invoice. It can pre-form the email and just let you and ask you, do you want to send this to the supplier? And then you're basically done. But it can also be we've played around with actually reading the invoice lines, and whenever there's and showing the matches in the human in loop form, and then where it were in doubt, it would show that, right? So you can build it as you want it with the details that you need, and it works quite well, I would say, from our point of view.